Hey guys, today we aren't shopping. Instead, we are turning Dollar Tree finds into high-end decor on a budget. So grab your coffee and let's get started. Today, I'm recreating this stunning travertine side table from Studio McGee. It's easy to see why it sold out in the first week, but instead of spending $195, I made mine for $5. All it takes is 4 items from the Dollar Tree, plus a few basic supplies I already had: glue, Quikrete, and paint. Let's get into it. Here are the items you will want to grab from the Dollar Tree: 2 noodle boosters, a plunger, and a pizza pan. The first thing you'll want to do is to shape your noodle. They are all kind of squished and we need to have them eventually fit on top of one another. So I'm just trying to get that center a little more round. Then I'm going to set the noodle on some wax paper and an old cookie sheet. Once I've done that, I'm adding some Quikrete to weight down the first noodle, since this will be the base of the table and our fake travertine. And then I start adding the concrete to the hole. Once I get close to the top, I start to slowly add the water. The ratio of concrete to water is about 4:1, but I'm not really measuring. I'm just gonna go slow and I'm making sure I'm getting it all mixed and it's not too wet. And don't worry if you can't find the noodle extender. You could always use the round gift boxes from the Dollar Tree. There are many tables shaped with a more round, smooth base, so the gift boxes will work well. You just have to weight it down like we are doing with the noodle. And then right at the end, I top it off with a little bit more concrete. I take out some of the rocks and make sure that it's more fine concrete to finish it off before I set it aside to dry for 40 minutes. Once the concrete has dried, I shape the other noodle and have my construction glue ready to go. You could also use E6000. So I glued the 2 noodles together, making sure they are lined up. We want it to look like it's one piece. After I'm happy with that, I weight it down to dry. So while the base is drying, I'll start assembling the top. First, I take the tags off and sand the plunger handle to make sure it's smooth and will look uniform when it's painted. Then I will take some plastic bags, Dollar Tree ones of course, and stuff them in the bottom of the plunger to make it more firm and secure. I'll do a dry fit and make sure I'm centered. Then with some hot glue and construction glue, I center the plunger to the back of the pizza pan. I hold it down for a few minutes to make sure the hot glue has time to adhere. And then to make sure everything stays in place, I weight down the plunger while it dries. So now I'll get back to work on the base and get the base coat on the noodles to start our faux travertine look. Unfortunately, you can't use spray paint on the noodle material. It will break it down and not adhere very well. I have found acrylic paint works best. You can use paint and baking soda for better coverage and adhesion, but I prefer a mixture of white glue, Dollar Tree lightweight spackling, and paint. I use a mixture of roughly 1/3 each. And for the base, I'm using an antique white by Apple Barrel and the white acrylic from Dollar Tree. I wanted to give the base a full coat using what I had already mixed because I wanted the color to be completely uniform. I was a little worried here. I didn't mix as much as I should have. When you're mixing your own colors, always make sure to mix plenty because it can get really hard to match it again exactly. Whenever I forget, I always think about the Washington Monument. If you didn't know, it's actually 2 different colors because of a 25-year delay during construction. They had to source new materials later and the stone didn't match, but I got lucky this time. And to make sure I got all the blue covered, I ended up doing a total of 3 coats of the same glue, spackling, and paint mixture. So now it's on to the top again, and because the top is metal, I decided it would be best for wear and tear to use a primer spray paint before actually spraying it black. After I gave the pan and the plunger 2 good coats of primer, I noticed the plunger pulling away from the pizza pan. I thought some caulk would do the trick, but as you see, mine wasn't coming out. So I went in with some good old white glue, and it really did the trick and made the top more secure. Once everything was fully dry, I gave the top 2 solid coats of black spray paint. I used a matte finish for a more high-end look. And after the paint dried, I sealed it with a matte clear coat to help protect the finish. Now it's time to bring the base to life with a faux travertine effect. This is where the magic really happens. I started with putting paint on a paper plate. I used apple barrel, antique white, and khaki, and Dollar Tree white and eggnog. For this technique, I use a wet paper towel, dabbing into different colors, and then using a dabbing and swiping motion, I apply the paint in sections, throwing out the paper towel when it becomes too wet and crumpled to use. I then went in with a small detail brush and lightly dabbed in water and then into the khaki color, focusing more on texture than coverage. You don't need perfection here. Real travertine has uneven tones and organic movement, so imperfections are part of the charm. Once I was happy with the look, I let it all dry completely before putting the table together. With both pieces prepared and painted, it's finally time to bring this high-end dupe together. I love when a dupe starts actually looking like the real thing, and this was it. So I gathered all my supplies in one place and got to work. The first thing I wanted to do was sift out some of the larger rocks from the Quikrete to get a smoother, refined finish. And just a heads up, it sets up really fast. I only had about 10 minutes tops to work with it. Once the plunger handle was anchored into the base, I added the dry mix, slowly poured in the water, and mixed carefully. We were so close to the finish line. After the concrete cured, all that was left was to clean up the top of the base, do a few final paint touch-ups, and then it was done. And wow, I'm obsessed. This table turned out even better than I ever imagined. And here's the table styled on my patio with a bouquet of flowers and a candle. Super simple and elegant, but I also tried it with just a plant for a clean, minimal look. But honestly, my favorite setup is by the fire pit with a bowl of fire starters and a box of matches. It's functional and I love the way it looks. Of course, this table could go inside too, but I wanted mine for the patio. And I just love how this $5 dupe turned out. And now that you've seen my full DIY, you can see why it's giving high-end Studio McGee vibes without the price tag. Are you going to recreate this table? Tag me. I'd love to see it. And if you post it anywhere, use the hashtag #SandyDIYStyle so I can find it and maybe even share your version. Stay tuned for more DIYs. And don't forget about the giveaway. Subscribe and drop a comment to enter. Every comment counts as an entry, and the giveaway is growing every day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.